U-2 is a high-altitude reconnaissance aircraft that was developed for the CIA in the late 1950s. There was a myth that there was a bomber gap in between the American reserves and the Soviet reserves of their bomber fleets, and so we desperately wanted to know, did the Soviet Union in fact have this incredibly large bomber fleet? We needed to have an aircraft that could go and perform reconnaissance to determine whether or not this was true. What's, I think, so striking about the design of the U-2, which was designed by Kelly Johnson at Skunk Works, is that it's really a glider with a jet engine. It has an 80-foot wingspan. It's incredibly light, which is how it was able to reach such high altitudes, up to 75,000 feet. In the late 1950s, the U-2 was equipped with the most sophisticated camera equipment of the day, and it was housed in the belly of the aircraft, and images were captured on film, and it was incredibly high resolution for the time. Those camera systems continue to be developed over the years. Up until today, we have incredibly high resolution digital photographs. So the pilots for the U-2 were recruited from the Air Force to work for the CIA, and then they had to go under extensive psychological and physical tests in order to determine whether or not they were capable of going to such high altitudes. If you go to more than 60,000 feet, your blood will start to boil and fuel in your aircraft will start to boil. So there needed to be changes made to mitigate those sort of things occurring. So the pilots who flew the U-2 were wearing basically what we would think of as spacesuits, high-pressure suits. Many of the missions in the late 50s were just around Soviet borders because there was concern about sparking any sort of Soviet hostilities, because even though some people say that the U-2 is a stealthy aircraft, it is stealthy in as much as it has a very thin, long fuselage and it flies very high, but it is definitely able to be tracked by radar. So when the U-2 was crossing the Soviet Union, they could see it. They knew that it was there and they were angry about it, but they just couldn't do anything about it because interceptors couldn't get up to that altitude and their missiles couldn't hit it. So there still needed to be some caution exercised with sending these missions. The Soviet Union knew that they were being spied upon by the U-2.
показал, да.
Красные блоки не снимаем.
I'm Lieutenant Colonel Rick Seldom Wright. I'm from the 49th Operations Group at Holloman Air Force Base, New Mexico, and I'm standing in front of the F-117A stealth fighter. The airplane became operational in 1981, and the airplane's operated in secrecy from 1981 till 1988. In 1988, November, the Defense Department acknowledged that the airplane existed for the first time. And then in December of 1989, the plane was used for the first time in combat in Operation Just Cause when we went in to get Manuel Noriega and bring him out. And then in late 1990, early 1991, the airplane had its first real extensive use in combat in Operation Desert Storm, and it was very successful in Operation Desert Storm. A lot of our visitors to the air show ask what these are on the nose. We've got 4 pitot tubes on the nose, and what these do is collect data about how fast the airplane is going and what its angle of attack and side slip angle is. Each of these tubes feeds its own flight control computer, which helps to fly the airplane on the fly-by-wire systems. As we move up the nose here to the turret just below the windscreen, that's called a FLIR, or forward-looking infrared turret, and it detects temperature differences of things on the ground and it lets us see in the dark. On the bottom of the airplane, to the right of the nose gear, is a second turret called the downward-looking infrared device, or the DELIR. And this turret, in conjunction with the upper turret, is how we do our attacks on our targets. This has an infrared detector system and also a laser designator system. A laser beam fires out of this turret and designates the target so that the bomb can see the spot on the ground and know where to home to as it falls towards the target. You notice the airplane has a pretty strange shape to it. It doesn't have any curves on it. It's in a faceted shape, kind of like a diamond or some kind of a jewel. The shape of the airplane bounces radar signals so they don't return back to the transmitter, and then any signals that do bounce back are attenuated by the skin of the airplane so that they come back much smaller than they hit the airplane at. So the combination of the shape and the materials is what makes the airplane stealthy to radar. And if you look at the rear end of the airplane, you can't really see an obvious hole where the exhaust exits the airplane, but it actually comes out of a slot on the top rear edge of the airplane. That's part of our stealthiness, is to reduce our heat signature. So this slot on the back of the airplane is where the exhaust comes out. It's shielded from the ground, so if you're a bad guy looking up at the airplane from the ground, you can't see into our tailpipe like you can any other type jet fighter. It's actually a real easy airplane to fly. It's got a fly-by-wire flight control system, and the airplane is aerodynamically unstable. So if you made a model of it and tried to glide the model would tumble out of control. But because of the fly-by-wire flight control system, that computer system keeps the airplane stable and helps the airplane to maintain control. To the pilot, it's all transparent. It's all working in the background. And as a pilot, I just do the normal stick and rudder and throttle things that any other jet pilot does, and the plane acts normally. It doesn't go real fast, but it's highly maneuverable. It'll loop and roll and do any of the maneuvers that other airplanes will do. So it's a real nice airplane to fly.
The X-47B, the technological dream machine that is the future of U.S. Navy unmanned aviation.
We're talking about a new way of doing business. It allows so much more capability.
This thing does not get bored, it does not get tired, and it excels at the mundane.
Currently a demonstration model, the X-47B has been designed for use aboard Nimitz-class aircraft carriers. Its tailless batwing shape will make it the stealthiest unmanned system ever to take to the skies. Unveiled at the end of 2008, it will carry out surveillance and strike missions, all autonomously and at long range.
Something that the Navy needs. It's a long-range strike capability. Not only does it give you an overnight picture for the battle group, it also can reach out 3,000 nautical miles, stay 50 hours with refueling, and give not only a picture, but can do strikes too, for time-sensitive targeting.
As an unmanned aircraft, obviously, there's no pilot on board to grow hungry or tired. And with the ability to refuel in mid-air, the X-47B has an unrivaled endurance. Initially, the X-47B will be used as a spy in the sky, but should the need arise, it will be more than capable of carrying out strike missions. If the futuristic shape seems familiar, that's because it's an evolution of the B-2 stealth bomber. Landing on an aircraft carrier is difficult enough when you have a tail to help stabilize your plane. For the X-47B, hitting just the right landing spot at the right time presents an even greater challenge.
United States Air Force lands on something 300 feet wide, 2 miles long, and it doesn't move. Now you're taking 4 acres, and you're taking something that travels about 150 miles an hour, and you have to hit it with pinpoint accuracy.
The X-47B's ability to land autonomously on such a small area with equal precision every time, regardless of the conditions, is just one of the reasons it's our ultimate unmanned vehicle.
SR-71 is a combination of power and majesty. When you look at it, it just has a mystique that I think is going to live for generations and generations. I wish I could take everybody up to 85,000 feet because you can see 350 miles in any direction. You can see the curvature of the earth. Mountains, 10,000-foot mountains look flat. Six presidents used the SR-71 extensively because they had a great sense of confidence that it could in fact go out, collect the information required, and bring it back. If we carried the nose camera, which we call the country's camera, it took a picture 72 miles wide. In 64 minutes, you would film 100,000 square miles. The airplane loved to fly straight and climb and accelerate. Most of the time at altitude, 80 to 85,000 feet, it was kind of like a nice Beamer or a Cadillac. The genius of this airplane was that the faster we went, it's the only airplane in the world, we burned less fuel. As I go around the country and try to visit and work with museums, there's a whole new generations of young men and women that are absolutely fascinated by this airplane. I was blessed in the Air Force because I was lucky to fly a number of Lockheed products. Lockheed was always there to bring in new innovation that met our needs as warfighters so we could better do our job.
Chief, do you think anyone here might be interested in seeing a new bomber for the 21st century, really seeing it? You think there's any interest? You guys want to see it? All right then. All right then. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it is my distinct honor to give you a bomber for the 21st century, the B-21. There it is, the B-21. So we have an image, we have a designation, but here's what we don't yet have. We don't yet have a name. And this is where I am challenging and I'm calling on every airman today. We want our active duty, our National Guard, our reserve, our civilians, our family members. We'd like all of you to give us your best suggestions for a name for the B-21, America's newest bomber. And in so doing, we hope that you'll take the opportunity, and we're going to try to facilitate this for you as well, so that we can all learn more about the important role that this platform is going to play against the real threats that we will face as the United States of America with our allies and partners around the world in the future. Together, we're going to lead our Air Force, our military, and our country into the next generation of warfare dominance.